Hi everyone. Thank you for organizing. My name is Tateuchi and I'm a doctoral course student of Tohoku University, Japan. Okay, today I'd like to talk about the morphological study of archaeological objects. As you know, the shape and structure of archaeological objects are important and basic information for archaeological study. There are various purposes of shape analysis. For example, basic description of archaeological objects, organizing objects into different groups, this means taxonomy, and of course chronology. So far, a variety of methods of shape analysis have been developed. In the last few decades, new methods of quantifying and analyzing morphological shapes have been developed. Nowadays, these methods are easy to use because of a free software environment as like our language and platforms to share the process and data used for analysis. These new methods allow us to describe whole shapes and easily visualize the differences and similarities of archaeological objects. In this study, I'd like to use these methods to solve a research question in Japanese archaeology. First, let me explain about geographical information of Japanese archipelago. The Japanese archipelago includes about 7,000 islands, and there are 6 main islands. The largest one and the most populous one is Honshu mainland, and the second largest island is Hokkaido. In this study, I focus on the northernmost area of Honshu. This area and Hokkaido are separated by Tsugaru Strait. Tsugaru Plain is the largest plain in this area and adjacent Tsugaru Strait and Western Ocean. The northeastern area of Honshu mainland was outside of the domination of the ancient dynastic state in the Heian period. The Heian period began in 794 and ended in 1185. This period is characterized by the centralized authority by the emperor and nobles in Western Honshu. The ancient state in the Heian period was influenced by the Tang dynasty in China, especially in its politics and culture. People who lived in the northernmost area are called Emishi, and they were regarded as different ethnic groups by the ancient state. Successive Japanese emperors had tried to bring Amish people under their control and expand national territory. This also means diffusion of the Chinese political system and culture in the northernmost area of East Asia. Despite 300 years of resistance, Amish people were finally dominated in the early 9th century. Figure 2 shows the territorial expansion of the ancient state. However, Amish people in the northernmost area had continued to resist and often caused major wars. They had been independent until the 12th century. Amish people in Tsugaru Plain were one of the largest Amish groups in this area, and they were also independent, even though they were recorded in written sources in the 9th century. Very few village sites were found. Most of archaeological sites which were excavated in Tsugaru Plain belong to the 10th century. Figure 3 shows that the number of pit dwellings increased rapidly in the late 9th century and the early 10th century. This could not be just the population growth of local people. Not only dwelling houses, but also new types of and technology of pottery appeared in the late 9th century. Pottery showing figure 4 was made using potter's wheel and fired in large kilns. We call this type of pottery sueki pottery. In Japan, potter's wheel and this kind of kilns were introduced together from Korean peninsula in the early 5th century. However, Amish people did not use this technology until the 9th century. The rapidly increasing of pit dwellings and the appearance of new pottery indicate that people immigrated to Tsugaru area from other areas. Previous studies have tried to detect the specific origins of immigrants by focusing on technologies and styles of pottery employed by immigrant potters. So far, three areas have been proposed as an origin of the immigrant potters. First, relatively close areas. Second, southeastern areas. Third, southern inland areas. However, due to the more methodological difficulties, the assumed origins have not been statistically evaluated. The pottery illustrations on figure 7 shows typical pottery shape of Tsugaru Plain and each areas. Previous studies have compared these shapes using measurements of the height, length of the rim and the bottom of pottery. However, they are almost the same in size, and they could not find important differences. So, this study quantitatively investigates the similarity of pottery shapes to understand the dispersal process of new pottery style and the origins of the immigrant potters. Okay, to compare and measure the similarity of pottery, previous studies routinely use ratios of measurements of of orthogonal sections. For example, figure 8 shows the way of traditional measurement employed by Japanese archaeologists. Despite its simplicity, this standard method has limitations. Shot and trail pointed out three shortcomings. In short, orthogonal dimensions cannot preserve whole information of outlines and the geometric relationships between each dimensions. In the case of the stone tool in figure 9, orthogonal dimensions reduce outline information, and also geometric information is lost because each dimensions are treated as isolated. So, because of such difficulties, alternative methods to quantify morphological shapes have been developed. These new approaches are called geometric morphometrics or GMM. In contrast to traditional methods we saw the previous slide, less information of shape is lost in GMM. Landmark methods and outline methods are common morphometric approaches available today. In this study, I use outline methods because materials analyzed in this study have few unique points and it is difficult to plot landmarks in the same order. For all data manipulation and analysis, I use R programming software and GMM-specific packages, MOMOCs. First, illustrations of pottery cross-section were collected from published archaeological reports. All images were processed in black shape on white background. After this, outlines are extracted from monochrome images to XY coordinates. The outlines were normalized to remove the effect of size and location by setting the common centroid and equal centroid size. Finally, the matrix of XY coordinates was transformed to harmonic coefficients, which describe original shapes. To examine the shape similarity and variability, some statistical analysis, especially multivariate analysis, were performed. Okay, materials. A total of 376 pottery shapes were sampled from 13 different sites. These sites are dated to from the middle 9th to early 10th century. PCA was performed on coefficients for dimensional reduction. The first 5 PCs explains 96% of the total variance. Figure 12 shows morphological variation along the first 5 PCs. The PC1 relates to the height of vessels, and PC2 and PC4 capture the angle between the rim and the bottom. However, the angle of rim depends on the original pottery attitude when cross-sections are created, so I did not use PC2 and PC4 in my analysis. PC3 relates to the roundness of vessel body, and PC5 relates to the bottom length. Figure 30 is the scatter plots of PC1 and PC3. It shows a clear overlap between Tsugaru here and Juniper site, while many of ellipse overlap on the center and right side. Tsugaru and Junibayashi are on the left side. This indicates there is a significant difference of shape between Tsugaru Junibayashi group and other sites. And figure 14 is the scatter plots of PC3 and PC5. There is no significant difference between Tsugaru and other sites. Figure 50 shows the distribution of PC1 score. Both Tsugaru and Junibayashi sites have lower score compared to other sites. Finally, morphological differences between each sites are confirmed by classical Wallis test and pairwise Wilcoxon test. In the case of PC1, the table on the right side shows statistically significant differences between Tsugaru and other sites. The null hypothesis of no significant difference is rejected. However, we cannot reject the null hypothesis between Tsugaru and Juniper site. In addition, there are significant differences between Junibayashi and other sites, except for Tsugaru. Discussion. Here I quantitatively analyze the shape of pottery and its similarity. The similarity of pottery shape between Tsugaru and Juniper site is confirmed. This indicates hypothesis 1 is more plausible compared to other hypotheses. So far, I have compared the median of PC1 score among each site. Next, I'd like to focus on the distribution of PC1 score. Actually, Tsugaru site includes two chronologically different sites. One is in the late 9th century, one is in the late 9th century, and the other one in the early 10th century. I combined these two sites for visibility in previous slides. As you can see, Juniper site has two tops of distribution. This indicates there are two morphological types, and the right one, which has higher score, is more similar to Tsugaru 1. This suggesting complex process of immigration could have occurred. One of the two morphological types can be the origin of Tsugaru 1. This means there is a possibility that some of potters, not all potters, migrated from Juniper site to Tsugaru 1 in the late 9th century. In addition, after the first migration, other potters could have migrated again because Tsugaru 2 has more variability than Tsugaru 1. So far, the origin of second immigration is not sure. It will become clear by future research. Finally, let me further discuss the cause of immigration in a historical context. In 878, a large revolt against the ancient state occurred in south area of Tsugaru. And people attacked the provincial center in this region. Juniper site was located in the area the revolt occurred. From this, the revolt and the immigration seems to have a connection. The ancient state had routinely forced the Amish people to migrate from their origin to other far areas after large wars. This immigration policy aimed to divide the Amish people into smaller groups and decrease their military power. This policy could have been also implemented after this revolt. Although the detailed process of immigration and social changes in Tsugaru and Tsugaru area after the immigration should be considered, and that would be my future subject. So far, I think this is a possible reason for the immigration. Okay, these are my conclusions. And you can download our code used in this study and other my works here. Thank you for listening.